All right, everybody, away we go. Welcome to today's call. It is Friday, my favorite day of the week, because we get to do sales training. And today is February the 8th of 2019. So we are going to do something a little bit different on this one, where I am going to be very specific about going after listing presentation language. Okay. And I say language because even though some of you might be jumping on the TRC page, or some of you might be wherever you are on Facebook, this is more about the language, because I'm not in front of a whiteboard today walking you through that. For all of you that get to join in the campfire calls, you definitely know how we walk through that. And we do it in there. But today I wanted to grab Laura, who's off camera here to the side. And she's been working with me for 12 years. But the evolution there with Laura's job position is that as you grow, you want to empower people that are in that assembly line of manufacturing relationships with you. You want to move them up. And so it's very important to understand that as Laura moves up, there's more responsibility. And I can't forget that the training needs to go more in depth about things that she really hasn't done. She might be able to see me doing some of them and perceive that she understands it. And I might make the big mistake as the team leader that she understands it, and we can be way off there. So we're going to close that gap. Also with us is Karen Shaw, who's been with me as a coaching client for many years. And she's just smashed it in Spokane, Washington on the buy side. So like Grant Van Dyke and some of the other folks that are in the mastermind, they've smashed it on the buy side and they've done very well. And so we want to be cognizant of that, as well as that there are people that have developed out their businesses on the buy side. And it's funny, like the sell side or the listing side comes, as I would say, serendipitously, or almost like by accident. And that's not good for any real estate agent. There must be an intentionality to pursuing both the buy side and the listing side. So today we're going to focus clearly on that listing side and make sure that we move in that direction. So to that effect, to keep everybody's mic muted, I only have Karen's open so that she can play color and Laura can play color, and they can stop me during the presentation. I'll try to give just an intro as to process. And then as I get going, they can stop me and we can deal with any of the challenges that they feel need to be dealt with in that moment of time. Fair enough, ladies?
Yes.
Karen, just double checking on you. You're good, right?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. All right. So one of the most important things to understand about the listing side is that over the years, we've gone through great pains. And again, I know the intake form has come from one coach and one guru to the next, and everybody has their little spin on it. But ultimately, what I'm trying to just chunk up here is not trying to be more right than anybody else. It's just to say what is universally important during your setup for a listing presentation. I think that gets lost on everybody. I think people are always worried about what they're going to say and their scripted performance, and they get lost on how to be properly prepared for this thing to begin with. And that is by understanding, number one, going all the way back out to Genesis, or the birth of this situation. How did this happen to begin with? In other words, what is the genesis of that potential listing lead? Did it come from the internet, from a lead capture algorithmic capture page? I'll leave that to your discretion. There's a lot of them out there, so you might have gotten it multiple ways, but that's the thing that I think is important to pay attention to. That. How'd you get the lead? Right? Where'd it come from? Was it referred to you? Was it the internet? Was it direct mail? It's very important to understand the process that this person has gone through to arrive at you. Literally, right before this call, I was on the phone, and our call service called Ruby, who we love, by the way, we highly recommend them. They grabbed a lead for us on an up call. I was able to call them back. And the first thing I just asked is, how did you find me? Because it matters, because that's their context of how they come to you. And if you don't take a beat to understand that, I don't think you can adapt towards, and again, there's a universality to what I said and how I set it up, but it's very, obviously important to listen in the beginning. How'd you come about me? Where are we at? So once that happens, I got a little bit of a background. I heard a little bit about their situation. I let her talk a lot because she wanted to tell me how she had come from here to there, etc. But then the next thing I said, would it be okay if what I did next was have my partner, my inside sales partner, Laura, call you? Because what she'll do is take down some of the more finite details and book a mutually agreeable time that works for both of us. Okay. And so the setup is very clear so that when and systematic, so that when she picks up the phone and she goes to speak to that person, there's an understanding why she's calling. And we did that with the other one with Jim a couple days ago. So we've had a couple in a row. And again, this is the season on Cape Cod, especially, where people are going to begin to show up and they're going to ask, for our help. So that's what happens here as we go through this. Now, the most important thing that I'm looking at here, and again, I'm not going to worry about the physical, but the most important thing is now we know where these people came from. And Laura picks up the phone and calls with a very particular set of questions. Now, this was very uncomfortable for her to ask Karen, just so you know, too. I mean, I'll just reveal one of the most uncomfortable things to do is to pick up the phone and ask pointed questions that are trying to provoke real answers so that we really know a lot of why this is happening and what kind of product. I mean, if there's 2 beats, that's it. Now, the why becomes a very big deal because you've all heard from a standpoint of timing and motivation. Are you actually going out to a real listing presentation or not? Because it's okay to go out, and I'll say this loudly and clearly. It's just fine to go out way early and to coach somebody, because this is the relationship building business that we're in. It's not you just going out always to just list a house, or worse, go out to a cattle call of 6 or 7 people. Do you mind sitting there so I can?
Yes.
Yeah, pay attention. I just want to sit behind the camera so we can have more of a tennis match here as we go on. But the point is, it's okay. I'm going to repeat this. It's okay to go out early and to coach people, because you're going to see when I go through the 7-point listing plan, you're going to see that we're coaching them. This is what they want. They want us to coach them in these 7 points that we're going through. So it's important that they get that context from us early and often, because you're conditioning these people to see you positioned as differently. So when we come through, it's the basics. And remember, don't blow this off, especially with people that you know. I will repeat this. Do not blow off process. Laura will tell you that every time we cheat our process, it hurts us, right? Am I wrong?
It goes downhill every time.
Every single time something goes awry when we cheat our process. I want to really emphasize that with double exclamation points. So this seller qualifying questionnaire is going to ask some things that you might already know. But the important thing is you're conditioning this relationship in this professional contact from that very beginning. Anything you want to add to that so far?
I've fought you on these questions a lot over the years,
Yeah.
Just trying to understand their relevance, because it is my high D nature to skip over ones that I already know, which I was in a habit of doing. But I understand the concept of, getting people to talk, especially about the house details. That's what they like to talk about. And I was not allowing that room for them to do that. So I understand now that that was a mistake. And I've found, because I've probably asked these questions thousands of times over the last 12 years, that certain questions make people squirrely.
Yeah.
And I'm like already ready, and just they need for kind of a further explanation sometimes of like why I'm asking. And then typically they'll give me what I want to know.
And that will bring up the question that you and I have been working a lot. How do we set every stage up too? It's not that we just dive in, wait for the questions to come back about why are you asking me this, but to set it up right from the very first beat. So again, we've determined, how did you find us? Well, my son sold with you, and he referred, and we might be interviewing a couple people. And that was, I don't know whether it was a defensive mechanism or
No, he
just
did.
No,
Yes.
I understand that, but I'm saying his mindset was most likely to say, look, I'm professional. I'm going to interview a bunch of people. Whether it's true or not, he wanted us on our game.
Yep.
He wants us to have this sense of having to compete and having to win his business, which I think is great. I love clients like that put us on our toes. They make us better. Then today, where we're a little bit earlier. So we've already been to that listing presentation, Karen, but this one is one that's up and coming. Okay. We have some sort of a tacit relationship to a past client who's the son who's coming. We know the area cold because the other house was down the street. This one, it's in our avatar again, and they found us from another listing. So it's a little bit more random as to how they find us. But after listening to her on the first call and asking her, how did you find me? We get into, hey, we do our homework a lot and deeply. And this is how we found you from this property. So without pushing too far and being more curious, we can ask that later, but we get that context, okay? So the genesis or the birth of this relationship is different. Now, when you call up, the qualifying questions are clear, right? You put your name down on the sheet. Remember, all of you that can't see the sheet, it's just a simple one-pager. And I'm going to walk through again today. I want you to hear me. Take your notes down if you want to. This is not about, oh, let me see that. Let me listen. It's very important to begin to get your narrative squared down, right? Or squared out. That's the key here. Just understand the importance of process. And you heard Laura, after 12 years of doing this with me, plead guilty that she sort of blew me off. And I too blew off my mentors who taught me the importance of following this stuff until I began to really change that disposition. This is about the hero of the story, who in this case today is the seller. And you have to allow them to have a very thorough process every time. Everybody listen to me say that again. You must allow buyers, and in today's case, sellers, to have their own thorough process. Do not cheat them. Do not assume anything. It's almost like you're dealing with a kindergarten level relationship first. Treat it that way. Treat it like it's a delicate situation with a child who needs a thorough explanation every time. Every time Laura and I cheat that, it causes us a headache somewhere down the line, right? And we're getting better and better at this, as evidenced by a couple of price reduction conversations we've had recently with two clients at luxury, especially, where it's very difficult here. All right, so she's going to put her name down on this first, so I know, and in this case, as we expand, we'll know who took the intake sheet. Next is the seller name, right? And we want all decision makers. That says it in parentheses here. So we want to know, is there somebody else that owns this with you? And in this case, there's a daughter who wasn't going to be there that is a decision maker, and we knew that going in. Get a telephone number, reestablish the best number to contact them at, so that if we have to make a change of plans or anything comes up, or worse, I'm late to the appointment, right? We want that mobile number on this sheet so that when I'm in the car going 120 miles an hour, I am systematically there and make sure we pay attention. Next is the property address. So we need to just confirm the property address. Next, what style of the properties? And now we're getting into what Laura was talking about, Karen. We have these property specifics. And again, this is not about us. You could be looking online at an expired if it birthed that way and have all the information in front of you. That's not the point. The point is to get them talking about the property so that they have their process, even though you already know this. See, that's the problem, I think, is a lot of us know something, or worse, we're afraid to say something wrong. And that's what we're dealing with today, is more so the insecurities of what we don't know, okay? So now we're going to ask, what style of home? What's the square footage, bedrooms, bathrooms? And in our case on Cape Cod, it's important to know whether there's a basement and it's finished, okay? Because that's a very significant piece of what happens on Cape Cod. People finish basements left and right for extended family. It's just a big part of what we do. Might not be important to you, okay? The next thing, even though we might already know this, where did you get our company name? Okay. So again, it's just building almost a reaffirmation as to why they came to us to begin with, so that we're digging in a little bit more with them. Next, this is probably one of the most important, and it can become very conversational, and let them have their moment here. Hey, sounds like a pretty good house. Why are you moving? Where are you going? But not this sort of peppering. Okay, so, why or where you, right? It's conversational. We've talked about that in the sales training call very effectively. A lot of you have done it beautifully, right? Especially in the inside sales, because we're in that inside sales moment on the phone here. We're not even in the house yet, right? But to say, hey, it sounds like a good situation. How come you're giving it up? Why are you moving? What's going on? Right? And this is where it becomes conversation, where you let them tell you what's up. Now, some people will be standoffish. They're private. They don't know you yet. Even though they're the ones essentially inviting you in, there's still, you have to listen and say, yeah, no big deal. Just was curious as to what's making the move, right? And you don't have to fight that. Were you planning on listing the house when we come out? And then something that, I don't know if this is the most updated one, if we've dropped this here, but what do you think your home might sell for in a pinch, right? I mean, these are the types of things that are starting to get them into saying, what is this property worth? Okay, really important. What do you think it's worth? Now, this is where you start. This was the toughest question, I think, for Laura, Karen, and anybody else, is that when you ask somebody what the property is worth, that can be the defensive moment for sellers, right?
Every time.
She's saying every time.
Almost.
What do you think the property's worth? Well, that's why I'm having you out. That's why I'm having 15 people out. No, that's not why we're asking it. We're asking it because what we want to know is what you're hoping it's worth, so that we can bring, pay attention to this language very closely, so that we can bring the supporting evidence. Period. Mm-hmm. So that we can bring the supporting evidence. Now, I want to stop there for a second, and I want to say, you see, we are market makers. You've all heard me say this before. You are making a market for this listing. So it is your job to go in there and become a team member with these sellers. And everybody has to row in the same direction here. So you want to know what their expectations of value are. And a lot of them will say, oh, yeah, I don't know. Take a guess. What's your best guesstimate? We haven't been out there yet. What do you think it's worth? Danny, I really have no idea. All right, well, maybe in that case, it's a major league default to us, which almost is unnerving in other ways. Now they're really leaning on us. And it's great in our case because we're confident what it's at. But the point is, just say that kind of a line is that, look, I'm asking because I want to bring evidence that supports your number. And I want to go find that. And the reason I'm asking these questions is because we prepare thoroughly for this. This isn't some whimsical visit. You've asked us to come in a professional context. We're going to act that way. That's a positioning thing as well. Most people are just going to take the appointment and say, oh, I'll figure that. There's the blow-off moment. Okay? Mm-hmm. Everybody blows this kind of a process off and say, oh, I'll just go in there and I'll figure it out when I'm in there. If you're up against us, we will smash you, right? At least with that professional context. And that's a positioning thing. If somebody just comes over and they think they're going to talk at a seller all about their marketing, that might be effective in some cases. But if we can come in and we can talk equally about marketing and show the entire process that they'll go through and show a more analytical approach, I'm telling you that's a different position, and I'll make an argument it's competition less, okay? Mm-hmm. Not everybody's in that business. Next, when did you buy the home? What did you pay, right? Ever get resistance on any of that stuff?
No.
Okay, so that comes pretty easily. Mm-hmm. And then have you interviewed other agents about selling your home?
They don't like that question.
They don't like that question for the same reason, what's your home worth? I want to talk about perception. Sellers have this perception on how this process goes based on their limited knowledge of how it goes. So if they've been doing the homework, their perception is that they're going to open up an octagon about competing for their house, and they're going to throw agents in, and everybody's going to beat the crap out of each other and put each other down or whatever they're going to do, and then they're going to come up with this magic number, okay? Refuse to play pricing it right bingo or to fight. You are in your own lane. The reason you're asking this is because the reason we ask is because if you are interviewing other agents, we'd like to come in last because we believe that what we do is so comprehensive, we'd rather it be compared to everybody after they've been there. And all we ask in the meantime, if you are interviewing other agents, is that please don't list with anybody because we go through a lot of detailed preparation and we're sure you're going to want to have what we're going to give you. Now you leave them wondering, well, what? What do you mean? So instead of letting the tail wag the dog in this process and having them say, hey, this is the way I'm going to run it. I understand that's the way you want to, but this is how we do it. You're asking us to come in here. We're professionals. This is the way we do it. You don't have to do business with us, but all we do is ask that you respect this process because it benefits you. Mm-hmm. And don't be afraid to say that. Say, we know that when we come in there, what we're going to give you for an education and an opinion of value as it all comes together is a massive benefit to you. So we're simply asking, just let us in there last so that you can compare it all because we believe we have the most comprehensive approach. Something like that, right? The language is in there. Karen, I'll pause. Any thoughts so far? Anything provoke you so far? Anything make you feel uncomfortable like we are sometimes when we ask these questions? Anything?
The only one would be if they were interviewing other agents. I don't like that question either.
Yeah, we'll talk about that. Have your moment. Why? What makes you feel uncomfortable about it as well? What could go wrong is a better question. I'll ask you, then I'll ask Laura.
Well, I guess for one, one, if they haven't had that thought process, they're going to be questioning themselves, if they should be. So that part of it, I don't like to kind of instill that thought process. And I guess my second reason on that is I tried going in first, I tried going in last, and I just, I feel it's awkward at that point.
Okay.
I don't think my confidence is as clear if I know I'm competing. How's that?
Yeah, fine. That's fair enough. And that's exactly what it is. It's a competition inferiority complex. And what I'm trying to do with this call today is eradicate that. I want to eliminate that in everybody's head. I want you all to be confident that win, lose, or draw, okay, you have to stick to your plan. There has to be a moment in time, whether it's buyers, sellers, agents that we're recruiting, whatever the case may be, we have to stick to our plan. We have to believe in what we do more. It has actually, quite frankly, not much. I'll stop short of saying nothing to do with competition, but it has very little to do with competition. This is much more about, are you confident in the plan that you're bringing? You're the guide with a plan. Are you confident in bringing that to the hero, in this case, the seller? And you just have to be, trained in that process over and over. That's why in the campfire coaching, we repeat those things over and over because we get little different angles and different objections, but it's the same thing. So you're role playing through this, okay? But it's very fair that you would feel uncomfortable in that because you fear competition. Oh my gosh, what if I was going to go in and get it and there was no competition? Then I made them interview people and I got crushed. Well, my job is to not let you get crushed. In fact, I would invite competition. I would want it. I would far rather have people. It's like when hiring agents, which is my number one focus at the moment. I am thrilled if you are talking to every sizzly steak out there right now. I'm not saying I will even win in the beginning, but I will lean in and say, you need this. And when you go over there, when this is not there, in 12 months, you're talking to yourself, come back to me and we will get started correctly. You just have to own that position in your mind's eye. All right. Next, as I go through this is, I'll just read that part again. So after, have you interviewed other agents about selling your home? Yes. Who, how many, when, etc. We'd like to ask to be interviewed last because we like our marketing system. And I could say our plan. So I'll make an adjustment to that because it's much more about our plan as we go into that story brand formula. Compared to all the other agents, we do a lot of work to prepare for our meeting. So all we ask is that you don't sign a listing contract until you've had a chance to meet with us. Would that be okay? And I would add some language about the benefits of what we're going to give them. In other words, this is that concept. Here we go again with that concept of the free gift that benefits them. You will not want to not have this. Right? But remembering that people make wildly impetuous decisions in the heat of the moment. Oh, I had somebody in and they were so nice, so I just went with them. They make those impetuous decisions all the time. So you have to make it clear to them that there's a lot more to this than they can imagine. We prepare thoroughly for it as professionals, and it's a massive benefit, the package that we will deliver to them, whether they choose us or not. Okay? Very important. Next. And I think we redid one of these. This looks like an older one. So the order of this looks a little bit out, but on a scale of 1 to 10, how motivated are you to sell? I think that belongs back up. And we have to look at this. This is not the most recent one, just because I want them all to have the order. But that motivational question on a scale of 1 to 10, how motivated are you to sell? That's everything. That's everything. Because if they are not up somewhere around a 9 to a 10, you might be able to cheat into the 7 and 8 and resolve it. Well, I don't know where I'm going. That's the number one thing that we hear. I heard it today. I heard it yesterday with Steve when we went out. I hear it all the time. And what I say is, look, there's the education, what happens here. So as you can see, there's no problem. We're very systematic. We're ready to go. But I think what you ought to do is get out in the field with us and go see some properties, see some things that have sold, see what the money has bought in the last 60 to 90 days. So you are comfortable with that. And I think that whole timing thing gets you in there to figure out why are you not a 9 and a 10. Most people that are a 9 are kind of there already, but they're just nervous and they don't want to say a 10, right? So I think, you're in there. And then when would be a convenient time to come over, and then we just get there, okay? So that's the warm up to this whole thing. Any question, ladies, before I move on?
Nope.
Karen?
Nope.
Okay, good. So So the next thing is about materials. And again, because it's more of an auditory teaching today, I won't get heavy into it, but I'm just going to hold up some of the materials so that when you go back and look at Facebook or YouTube, you can see that's a black folder that we use. And then there's some infographics and a really, pretty booklet version of the home sale course. And again, this is all about them. It is not necessarily all about how great our resume is and what we do. The hero of the story wants to climb Mount Everest. In our case, we want to give them a good plan. That's what we want. We want you to have a plan. We want you to understand the process you're about to go through. There's plenty of time to talk about our prowess and how we do and what our resume is. But with or without us, you need a plan, and we want to be the ones that give it to you. Okay? So those materials have everything to do with this confidence level that a lot of you don't have. If you're going in there with just, a CMA halfway printed out by the MLS, it's not good enough. It's not this attention. I don't care whether you do entry level or luxury, or ultra luxury for that matter. Always go in looking the best that you can with your materials and have them be simple, clean, and clear. All right? Now, the most important thing to understand is when you arrive, all these materials are ready. I shouldn't have to say it, but I will. You're well groomed in the look that you are portraying, the one that you feel comfortable in. Your car is clean. You're ready to go. You're focused. This is like a sporting event that you're about to compete in. You need to be focused. If that means you need to get to the neighborhood 15 minutes early, drive around, orient yourself. Oftentimes I'll do that, and I will open the package and I will look immediately to the seller qualifying questions to just orient myself. So that when I walk in there, I look at the names of the people. That's why I want all decision makers here. I look at their price expectations always, and I get a feeling for the neighborhood. And I take that breath, and then I go in. And the first thing that I do is just introduce myself. Here's who I am. And even in that small beat in time, I'm thinking of the one yesterday. There's that small beat in time where they react to you physically. And yesterday what happened is they reacted to me physically. They say, you look just like you do online. I said, well, that's good. No more high school pictures and trying to pretend that's me, right? So we have a laugh. That's just my style, to maybe lighten the mood and have a little bit of a laugh. And they wanted to have that moment, right? And so we have the quick moment at the door. And then I ask, hey, thanks for having us over. We're humbled by the opportunity to help you. Would you mind taking me for the nickel tour before we get started? Something I say almost every single time, right? Only because that's my method. I'm getting myself set to follow process and not cheat. Back in the day, especially given that I have plenty of high I and D, like you, I would either just cut to the chase or start talking, and that's not the process. So when I go through the process, it allows me to go, the same thing that happened on the phone, they get to talk about their property. And that's the most important subject to them and me. Because I need to see the quality of the product. Is it hardwood floors? Are these windows new? Is there air conditioning? Is this? And we're having that conversation, building up the value of this property so that when I go to sit down and do my technical analysis on price, I know condition. Am I above or below average, period? What are the things that I know are going to be a challenge to me once I go to sell this property? Because they've asked me to do it. And I'm going to sit at this table and I'm going to walk that delicate line of being instructional and without being condescending about anything that's wrong. I want everything to be positive, even if it's a difficult challenge we have to deal with. So after you walk around and we go on the outside, wherever it is, depending on the weather, inside and outside, we're going to go. Then we're going to say, is it okay if we sit down at the kitchen table? Because I always want the folks that are the decision makers on the other side of the table. So it's a teaching moment because that's positioning. So sometimes when we go off into these areas where it's a couch, I'm not going to your house to sit down to have a cocktail with you. I'm going to your house to educate you. So even if we're going to the living room where you're comfortable, I'm going to make sure that there's a little table or there's a way to give you this information, because it's far easier to consume my information, my guidance, when it's physically on a table and we are properly across each other, ready to do business. Okay? So wherever that is, even if I have to stand up in a house that's new construction, there's no furniture, we're going straight to that countertop, right? Okay, so now that gets us to the conversation. So again, depending on how you want to set yourself. So you set yourself up by saying, could we go through for a nickel tour, or could you give me a tour? Whatever your language is that's real for you, use it. Okay. And when you're going through, be positive. My gosh, it boggles my mind how many agents go, up, you're going to have to fix this, up, you're going to have to do that. It's stunning to me.
To add more anxiety.
It is stunning to me how many agents immediately go in and believe that that's a value add at that moment, because I hear it all the time. Well, geez, at least you came in positive. I mean, the last 3 people that came in, they said, I got to change this, I got to paint that, I got to do this. Nobody wants to hear that upfront. Even if it's true, that's not how you allow somebody to come to that conclusion to decide whether they will or will not. That's actually a mechanism of pricing, okay? Whether they want to recondition it or not. So you're not even there yet. Be positive about the things that you're seeing. Pick out the things that are positive, even if it's just a location, the place is a tear down. Be positive, because everything has a positive spin on it, really, when you think about it. Tear down is somebody's fabulous opportunity for them, and you just need to sell it. That's your job. Sell it as that opportunity, okay? So the next thing you'll say is, look, before I get started in this process, I want you to know. Now, everybody, if there's 2 decision makers, Laura has printed out for us, or Laura's going with in her hands, enough of the financial information that can be passed out. Because when it gets to the finances, meaning the price, there needs to be a package for each person. But the first thing that I'm going to pull out of the package is the simplest format with which I can express what the process is universally. A lot of you wonder, why would you give away all this information for free when all your competitors are there? Because this is just a statement of what is universal, right? I believe that there are 7 steps to selling a property that are universal, that we all go through, and we're just not stating them for the hero of the story. And that's where I say, start off with this elementary school level understanding of the global process, and then depending on where the student wants to go. If the seller is a student that wants to go deeper, you will be prepared to go deeper, and you'll learn more and more and more over time how to do so. But if you're coming in and you're doing this all on muscle and there's no process, these 7 points are as important for me as they are the seller. Because if I get lost down a deep dive, I can look across the table and see people's eyes starting to cross, and they're lost. And a confused mind does not vote in your favor, right? So you'll be shocked at how many times when I slide across the table, the 7-step infographic, and say, I'd just like to walk you through the process, and then we'll get into talking about some of the details about price, right? That's how we set it up. Karen, any thoughts so far? There was a lot of steps there just to get to the table. Any thoughts?
No, I think I pretty much do exactly that.
Perfect.
Already.
Perfect. Okay, so here we go. So the first thing that we do, and I'll go through this, I'm going to cheat even on a coaching call, because I do. It's my process that I have to stick to as well. So I say, look, the universal process of selling a house begins like this. A lot of people don't want to talk about it, but pricing it right is everything. I can talk about all these things that are important to you. I know you said marketing. I know you said communication, because that's how I started off. Before I start this process, what's most important to you? Well, I just want to know that, we're going to get 24 hours notice. No problem. I'll cover that. How about you? I want to know how you're going to market my property. And that's the big, that's the big one, right? Everybody panics. How am I going to market your property, right? What makes you unique? Those things put us in this defensive mode. No problem. I'll also cover that. So, but the first thing that I have to cover here tonight is pricing. If we don't get your price in the correct range, it could be the difference between multiple offers and absolutely no traffic. And that is a very, very sensitive subject when it comes to real estate. So I just want you to understand that there will be a range we will discuss today. And now that I've seen the property, I'm able to refine it. Right? I know you've probably been online and used an online algorithm to get that guesstimate. My job is to come in and bring that in tighter. That's why a lot of you are panicked about the Zillow's estimates and all these things, when the truth is that's just the first piece of financial information, which is big data. So while Zillow's trying to go out there and refine being able to give you an online Zestimate, forever, the marketplace has been more efficient than an online Zestimate. Think about it. In downtown Boston, the average, I don't have the stat in front of me, but I think in downtown Boston, the properties are selling, once they're priced correctly, with price adjustments already made, 99.56%, right? And in Seattle, where they were bid up over, 100%, you need to know those percentages. So real estate agents are already doing a far better job than an online algorithm, but our brain falls off the side of our head and we forget to tell them that. We forget to say, look, when something is priced correctly, even after adjustments, you're only going to give up 6% in this tough Cape Cod marketplace if it's right. And if we can get you closer, it's even more. So there's no such thing as giving it away. It's a matter of today trying to find the price range that's right. And of course, everybody wants to cheat to the higher end of the range, but I want to have the evidence like we asked you on the phone. Why do you think, what do you think it's worth? So that we're going to look at this evidence tonight and see if it supports what you said. And if not, I'm going to go back to the drawing board and go find it, right? That's how logical it becomes, Karen, Laura. It just becomes very logical. There's no, why are we so defensive when there's a logic to it? Yeah, come on.
Do you really necessarily want to try to find evidence to support that number? Just because that's what they want?
Wink, wink, wink. You're going to find whatever evidence is available.
Well, yeah.
You're just simply trying to find out, are they whacked out or are they realistic from the start?
I see.
So I'm not saying it's any kind of bait and switch where you're saying one thing and then doing another. I'm simply saying you're not going to let the tail wag the dog when it comes to pricing, but you are going to have to deal with their expectations. So what are your expectations? I'm going to go in and look if there's any, you could say it this way. I'm going to look to see if there's any evidence to support that. Say it that way, right?
I like that.
So I think that's the point here, is that it will be or it won't be. Look, what we all do is not rocket science, but it becomes extremely difficult because 2 or 3 percentage points off on an asking price can cause problems.
For sure.
10% at luxury is the variance here on Cape Cod. Mind-boggling. 10%.
Yeah.
On $1.5 million, $150,000. So many luxury sellers are leaving themselves in the woods without a compass. Because they're so overpriced, they're actually inviting the other end of the bell curve, which is somebody who's going to lowball them. And what they don't understand is that they move more towards where it really is worth. They're not giving it away. They're actually attracting more of the people who say, oh, that's more reasonable. Follow me? The complete irony on pricing it right is that, and you have to explain this to these people. Say, look, I want you to understand that pricing it right is everything. Because if we cheat way out to the high end, what that actually brings you is the lowest end grinder who says, oh, they're way overpriced. They're not getting any action. Let's just take a shot at them. Does it not happen to us all the time?
Yep.
You can think of it at Willowbend. When we were overpriced, all we got was the lowballer who was smartly just trying to anchor us somewhere in the middle. Mm-hmm. But now the seller becomes insulted simply because they chose something that was erroneous. Mm-hmm. And that's why this whole setup matters. So the next thing is saying, look, when we go over the pricing at range today, the reason I walk through your properties to see, is it at, above, or below average condition, right? That's what I looked for. So that you'll see when I go through this range, we're going to look at the competing properties that sold for similar money and what benefits and features were involved in that. So we can make an apples to apples comparison the best we can. However, good news for you is in this process, my trained eye went through and I saw some things and we can look at what the evidence is. You can recondition your property. You can start with the least expensive stuff. And I said that yesterday in the presentation. You can start with the least expensive, which is to hire professional cleaners. I don't care how clean this place is today. Cleaning for sale is a completely different experience. To get professionals in here who go to places that you would never even fathom need to be cleaned and to change the whole sense and perception from a smell standpoint, people make buying decisions on smell every day. Think perfume. Yeah. I mean, every day. So we say you can recondition for low cost with professional cleaners and professional landscapers, unless, of course, you're all selling in a city, right? Those are the two easiest value addeds when it comes for reconditioning. Now, clearly, if you'd like to do some rehab, look, you want to upgrade the boiler, which is in big trouble. You want to upgrade the paint. That's the next lightest thing, whatever. From expensive to not, you tell us, but these are the things that will be revealed in a home inspection, and they will come after you. So we're going to have to do one of two things. Actually, one of three things. One, you're going to fix them. If that's not an option, 2, I'm going to get my contractors to price them out so that when negotiation time comes, you don't get beaten up. Okay. 3, what was 3? I'm trying to think. So 1, you can do them. 2, you can price them. Or 3, you can price it where it belongs in as-is condition. That's how you get somebody to recognize that the price, you can do nothing, but that's going to negatively affect what part of this pricing range you're in. So see, now pricing is not this big weighted thing, this game of bingo. It's just a reality. We have a bell curve of where you could trade high to low based on evidence. Now, if you want to move up in that range, let's talk about reconditioning. Once reconditioning is done, now we can talk about perception, which comes into point number 3, staging. Real professional stagers are magicians. You want to hire one because you have the wherewithal to do so. Even if they come in and move some stuff around, we recommend it. If not, we will give you the basics of what a staged home looks like. Get rid of all the personal tchotchkes and make sure the furniture is set up in each room so that flow, okay, feng shui is in full effect. It matters. And we can guide you there if you don't want to spend the money on the pro. So now I've hit those 3 points. Now that's a lot of discussion sitting at the table. We talked about price range and what it means. I haven't showed the math yet. I've just told them about how price is there, how conditioning and staging affect it. Now I get into marketing, which is where most listing agents will default to in the beginning, because people will say, how are you going to market my property different from everybody else? And then we get into this weird defensive place. Well, it's like, well, you know, they don't do this and I do. It's weird. It just gets flat out weird. And that is not how you do listings marketing anyway. And everybody's trying to brag too much about what they do with listings marketing, okay? Everybody's trying to go too far with it, with colored brochures and all that. All that is nothing more than assistance to assist the sale of a properly priced property. Let me repeat that. Most of the marketing that is out there, and I'll get into push marketing in a second, but most of the marketing that is out there is there to assist you to sell a properly priced property. Because a property that's priced incorrectly, I don't care if you have if you've got velvet stock for your property brochures, when nobody comes through the door, that marketing becomes irrelevant. Nobody watches your 3D tour on Facebook, right? Maybe they watch it and they have their little, moment of fun online, but they do not come because your price trumped all this stuff. So you can go bananas listings marketing. And if you don't get control over this piece of the conversation, the tail will wag the dog right out the door, right? Got it? Come on.
I'm just curious, when you're going through this infographic, do you often find that people like, well, what do you think it's worth? Like interject, like, well, give me the number.
Not at this moment, because I have such control over the flow of the teaching.
Okay.
Most of the time they're listening.
And if they do,
I will get to that.
Okay. That's what I figured.
That's exactly what I say. Say, no problem. I have all the math with me. I put my hand down, and by then I've actually pulled out the whole stack that has the analysis on the top, has the supporting documentation below it. So that CMA, quote unquote, is sitting right there with our analysis on top of it. So if I get interrupted in explaining this process, and again, this is a teaching moment here today, especially for you and Karen, it's specific. I'm taking a longer time to explain it. I can move through this relatively swiftly if I sense that there's a lack of patience and they're desperate for that math. So there's an art form to this too, but I'm not skipping the steps.
Okay.
Even when I went out with Steven yesterday, after we went through a lot of personal stuff, there's relationship, we know, I said, let me just go through this with you. And at the end, she thanked me. Thank you. That made a lot of sense to me. There was a strange relief. She was no longer guessing. She knew certainly that she was in good hands from a process standpoint. Okay. So you can do this swiftly. That's why it's an infographic. I could have done this on the hood of a car. I could do this call today in 10 minutes. Or 2 hours if that's what it would take, because somebody was so
it's really just about reading who you're talking to.
No doubt about it. And answering questions and allowing them to interrupt you, but bringing it back to the flow, right? Okay. So now watch what you just did. Geez, Laura, it seems like you had some more questions about marketing. Let me hit the 3 beats. By the way, because that's such a big fear of agents and such a big request from sellers, we take one of those points, which is marketing. Now remember, I say, see, before we even arrive at marketing, how much there is to the process to protect you?
Yeah.
But since you're asking about marketing, I'm going to deep dive into that. There's really 3 beats to marketing. One is the preparation stage. And I've talked about that, okay? I've told you that that's the conditioning and staging. This is a product. So you're preparing the product to be marketed, okay? So we've discussed that. But the next point is syndication marketing. You need to know, whether you hired me or not, what syndication marketing is. It's the efficiency of the multiple listing service and its ability to syndicate your listing all over the internet. Everybody wants to know about digital age, but nobody wants to talk about the understanding of RSS feed. Really simple syndication means that all that pain and effort we took to recondition, clean, stage is so that we can come in on a nice, sunny, bright day with our professional photographer and we can memorialize your product. We have to digitize your house as digital product. So when they come in, they have that one shot to do that. We're going to get the floor plans, the Matterport 3D tour, the professional photography, the drones if it's required, and get it all in digital form and put it into the multiple listing service and allow all of that content to be properly syndicated. It's not taken on an iPhone by a not professional person. It's done professionally every single time, the right way, so that we ensure that at least we've checked the box for syndication. Why is syndication marketing so important? Why is it important to be on the internet correctly? Because 88% of the time, your property is going to be sold with my brokerage and another. Don't let any brokerage tell you that they have some magic. If they only relied on the ability of their company, even the big ones, to sell it, it would be eliminating somewhere around 80 to 90% of the way that this goes down, which means most of the marketing that took place was that syndication marketing that put you in front of the right people. Period. Let's just be real. Now, some people like Karen had that, pushback a little bit about, well, do I really want to invite competition? Yes. Do I really want to tell them that syndication marketing is powerful? What if they just put it on themselves? Sure, go ahead. Because I'm not done with the process yet. We only got you to marketing and you're online. Great. You know what syndication marketing made you? A fly speck in the internet ocean.
Yeah.
So now if you didn't price it very closely correct, you're not even getting seen online. Forget about the old days when you would drive by a sign and make a more methodical decision. You don't even get caught up in a search. You are a ghost after all of that work. So that's why this is so important, right? So what we do is we actually get off our butts and we do a third beat beyond syndication marketing, which is called push marketing. Now, the obvious in push marketing is once that's done, we will have the brochures of your property physically done, and we will open house you. We will physically invite the public and agents at that moment in time to come through to see the property so that we create a marketplace inside the property. It's one thing to be in the marketplace digitally. It's another to have the bodies through the door, right? So we're gonna promote that through MLS, which is syndication. So some of that promotion of the open house, for example, for push marketing, Zillow loves content. So does Realtor. They survive off of it, right? So open house notifications is new content. So through syndication marketing, there's more noise, there's more action, and off it goes, right? But we're going to take it and put it on Facebook and push it around the neighborhood. We're going to at least fish off the dock. Right? So those types of things, those examples of push marketing, you can go through. I mean, for example, the for sale sign has to look good. Open house every day sign, those types of things, right? Property brochure, online and offline, pushed around through open houses and Facebook or wherever. Digital footprint online, YouTube videos, taking the pictures and putting them on YouTube, running it as an ad. There's so many ideas on how we can get up off our seat and push this thing around to make some noise to get people through the property, right? So those are your 3 points. I'm not going to go way deep dive into each one of them, but if you just remembered, 1, preparation properly so that the property can be digitally memorialized so that it can be in print and online. 2, syndication is why we're worried about all that detail so it looks the best it can. We can't control everybody's website, how they make it look, but at least we can deliver them the best digital product possible. 3, we go to work. We're not going to sit back and wait for the 88% to come sell it. We're going to make some noise. We're going to make some phone calls. We're going to market to the top agents. We're going to chat it up, right? We're going to make that happen.
I have a question.
Shoot.
I know that we do 3D tours for our luxury properties, but what if you were to have a seller who's in like the 450 range that wanted a 3D tour?
No problem, do it.
Okay.
It's not even a thought.
Okay.
No problem to do it. But this is an excellent question. What we do is above and beyond by a lot. All of you hear me say this, by a lot. If you do these things, it's above and beyond what other people do. So you are no longer the same price as everybody else. You got it?
Got it.
Okay. That's what value is. You saw where Lee was going from his gold to silver to et cetera, right? Mm-hmm. That's the point.
Yeah.
The more we do.
And you would say that to him.
For sure. You're not going to beat us up on commission if you want all this stuff that we do, right? This is like this, we're different. And that's what makes you valuable, right? See, there's a race to the bottom. Oh, we'll do it for this. You'll do what for this? What will you do for this? You'll do a less of a commission for what? What do you do? Now you can get away, listing agents can get away with that in a rising tide where the market's just taking off. They can get away with it. They're still going to falter on some of these other points. So let me keep going here. So the next point is, the real important point is, after all of that, I tell them, communication phase begins. I'm not talking about you and I communicating. That's happening before you even hire me. I'm talking about feedback from the marketplace. And as you and I say, if nothing is happening in the first couple of weeks with all this going on, we miss the price. And we need to talk about it. Most likely, unless it's really in a winter pocket where that part of the market is just dead anyway, maybe. If we don't see any kind of traffic, we miss the price. But communication, hearing nothing, can be as loud as people saying, yeah, there's 3 other houses that have a 2-car garage, you have 1. The other house has less bedrooms, yes, but they're all en suites. So now I'm getting that real feedback from other agents, okay? From other agents and those people who are the buyers themselves. Yeah. So you're getting that feedback. Does that make sense? Karen, you still with me? Karen?
Yeah, I am. Sorry,
okay.
I had you muted.
It's all good. It's all good. Okay, I'll keep going. So now that communication allows for us to come to you and let you know if there are any adjustments we need to make or you can make. Hey, we're getting clobbered on this, just like we thought. Everybody's like freaking out about the roof, okay? Now, I have that estimate from them, but we're still going to have to consider that could be an issue here. Mm-hmm. So that communication from the marketplace takes the pressure off of us. And now we're just stewards of what the market is saying. We're market makers. You can't allow your seller to go deaf at that moment. So you're explaining that. So that's where you can get into, hey, look, we use showing time to book the showings. Then that sends out an auto survey, which you will see real feedback as harsh as it can be. And if we don't get it, we will call them and solicit it and put it in there for you so you know what's going on at any one point in time. That will allow you to make the necessary adjustments, and we will be talking to you in a formal way every 30 days about how this plan is working. We will call you for a formal meeting, and that's the big thing that everybody blows off. They kind of as we did, we let it go. No, you're going to meet with us after 30 for sure, which we just did yesterday, and it was effective, right? Yep, because we said we were going to do it, we did it.
I think they need that retraining almost.
No doubt. They need to I hope you all heard what she said. They always need to be retrained in this process that they're in. You gave them a great education in the beginning, and then these weeks go by where there's not a lot of communication.
Yeah, and they forget everything.
And they get nervous and anxious, and they default back to what they know. They don't go to the plan. So that's why when a seller gets listed, continuously sending them what comes on for sale that competes with them, sending them what's pending, sending them what's sold. It closes that gap where nothing's happening. So at least they see what the market's doing. Yeah, go ahead.
I thought about this question earlier this week that I wanted to ask you. You know how we set up our sellers for sold properties?
Yes.
Do you think it would be more effective for me to be set up for their search and send them myself?
Both. I do it both.
Because I'm starting to feel like the sellers are not looking at them, and it would be more.
But both.
Okay.
It's the same thing before you go lead to prospect to client on a seller. You've been doing this, hopefully, presumably, this is why I make a huge deal at the front end to everybody, get these people in the back end of MLS with an offer when they're ready to go in 12 months. And that never stops. But you're always calling in your methodical frequency to say, did you get it? Because you see this? That never stops until it's closed. Never. See, you're seeing it in chunks. See it as a whole continuous process to deliver them that information, and you proactively giving the insight. Okay, let me keep moving here.
Yep.
So the next thing is, after this communication, you make some adjustments. Guess what happens? You get offers. And now the very mathematical stuff that we use to price it, we say, this is what we're going to use to negotiate on your behalf. Because it's most likely people will come in undereducated about math, and we'll use this to make your case. For example, if somebody comes in and lowballs you, say, look, if the seller appreciates that you made an offer in writing as a token of their appreciation, they'll knock $1,000 off the asking price, but they've asked me to share the math that we found, right? Unless you disagree with it and you found other information, wink, 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 because we're all thorough, right? They just respectfully ask that you consider how we found our price. Now you're going to floor people, and you're going to scare away the people that aren't serious and attract the ones that are. And then ultimately, after the negotiation comes, here's the key point. You've got to follow through with the closing process, crossing T's, dotting I's, making sure that when they now go to a 10 on anxiety, the move is real, the sale is real, their anxiety goes up a whole other level. You've got to be there for them each step of the way to close with care, because the whole point of taking them through this process, if they say yes to you, is to birth a happy past client. Okay? All right, Karen, thoughts about that? Because I'm at the hour. So I want to make sure that you and Laura, and then I'll do a quick open mic for everybody, and then I've got to call it. Thoughts there, Karen?
The only thing I guess that I do a little bit differently as far as communication is I take out 2 other forms with me, and one of them being what they love about their house, and I ask them for homework purposes to do that. Tell them that I like to market towards the personality, and we find that the same type of personality will buy your home. So if you can give me some of the things that you like about your house down, and we could use that in marketing towards people with your personality, that would be helpful. They seem to like that a lot. The only other thing that I do differently is I give them a communication form and ask them to fill it out on how they like to be contacted and how often they would like to be contacted, and kind of leave that in their court.
Yeah, those are good. Those are all good things, because they're opening up the line of communication, and you're really asking what's most important. I wouldn't lean too heavily on it's most likely somebody that's going to be your personality. I would lean more heavily on what made you love this place, right? The romance of the story. I think the storyline is going to match up to somebody who has that story. That's our experience too. It's similar to yours, but that's what we see. Is that, and that's why we hired a writer, because we actually now have leveraged the sellers to tell us their story, so that when we're melding that with the details, we send it off to our writer who writes the descriptions, so that it brings the story in, so that their voice is heard in the marketing. And I agree, they really do like that. My only suggestion to you is don't go too heavy on the personality, because what if it's not? You know what I mean? What if it's not? I don't think it hurts you. I just think you're close there with that story. Tell me why you love this place, because we got to get that story out to people, and they'll tell you. They'll tell you. All right, let me open up the mics here, and let me see if I have anybody with a burning question here. Any thoughts here? I opened up all the microphones. Thoughts, questions?
I thought it was really helpful because I have a presentation tomorrow morning.
Yep.
So it was really helpful for you to go through this again, and I'm going to watch it again tomorrow morning.
Yeah, perfect. And just slow it down, Kate, right? It's everything goes in slow motion, but it's not a performance. So there's nothing to be nervous about. It's a process that you're guiding them. Really see them as the hero of the story. And your main goal is to walk out of there having properly guided them so that they're empowered to make a decision. And hopefully that decision is in your favor. Good. Yeah, go ahead, Paul.
To clarify, excuse me. To clarify, are you saying that more or less, regardless of price point, and I mean, I know there's nothing that's super cheap in your area, but let's just say something that's on the lower end, like 400. Are you spending the same marketing dollars in terms of tours, photos, etc., on a 400K listing at say 3% as you are on like a 1.2 million at say 2.5 even? Are you
Not necessarily.
Equal marketing, or are you
not necessarily.
for the higher ones?
Yeah, not necessarily. Not necessarily. Because at the lower end, we might not need that level of digital marketing to sell the story. It might just be more straightforward. So for example, we have a client that was out, he had to go off Cape to find it for $202,000. It's pretty straightforward. If we had one of those properties, we would do our best to put it in the right light. We would still use professional pictures. That's just I think smart to do wherever you can incorporate that, because you're leaving a digital footprint for your brand too. So when your stuff gets syndicated and you cheat towards phone pictures and things like that, I see it in Boston all the time. It's horrendous. I mean, the awful pictures that just have been done incorrectly and no floor plans, it's just lazy, and you can get away with that. So I would always have, I think to that extent, those pictures.
Yeah. Professional pictures. And I was talking like over the top stuff like drone photography.
Yeah.
Professional staging. I kind of just meant like what you're talking about, just like a Matterport maybe for the floor plan, and professional photos at the very least, and if everybody kind of gets those two items more or less. Yeah, not the Matterport. The Matterport's, I think the Matterport is fantastic for bigger houses, luxury properties, like waterfronts. We were able to capture a couple things. So for us, I don't think that's standard fare. I think that's your upgrade package. Okay.
Cool. All right, what else? Anything else?
So, Danny?
Yeah, go ahead.
Danny?
Go ahead.
Going back to when you walk through the house and
Yes.
kind of get a condition, and you sit down and you tell them that you're kind of looking at the condition, if they're above average, or below average. Don't you ever have somebody that disagrees with you on the condition of their house being better than the others, and even though you feel it's not, they think they should be priced where they're at?
That's a very good question. I don't ever back myself anymore into absolutes. Okay, I'm guiding them. I just happen to have it on the paper to let them see where it's at, and let them have their process. So especially when I have a couple of people at the table versus one, they're going to have those different reactions to it. And oftentimes I've seen them beat each other up, right? I told you it wasn't this, or it's a strange phenomenon that when they see evidence, they're gravitating towards it themselves. And so I never really get caught saying, you're above average, you're below average. I mean, even if they are above average, you have to be careful.
I don't mean verbalizing that. Yeah. I'm not talking about verbalizing that, but if you go in and you're looking at their home and you're seeing what you see in the comps as their house being below average, and they think their house is well above all the rest of them, how have you dealt with that? Evidence.
I go straight to the evidence. I say, okay, well, let's take a look at what the money bought. And I'll go straight to the evidence. And I'll say, well, you see this one at $332,000 that you were hoping to be at? Here's the challenge. They have a one-car garage plus the same square footage plus they're upgraded. I'll just go straight to the evidence, right? It's very different. It's easy to get mad at us for our opinions, but not so much when there's evidence. Go straight to the smoking gun. Show them the stuff that they weren't, and let them come to that conclusion, and let them struggle with it, right? Karen, you and I will talk more on our one-on-one, okay? We've got to call it a day here. Thank you all for being here today. Thank you, Laura. Thank you, Karen, for bringing this up. It's a really important topic, and I hope you all got something out of it that you can use immediately. Get out there and try this stuff. And all you inside sales agents, same process for you on the phone, okay? And all you team leaders or group owners or broker owners, get these people the right qualifying questions and get them tuned into setting up better appointments. All right, everybody, have a fabulous weekend. Talk soon.
Thanks.
You bet. Take care.